Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. I hope you guys will forgive me for not having the screen centered here. I got kind of a makeshift hookup here while I'm driving. Going and taking care of business again as usual. And make a long story short, my wife's in the hospital. And we've been working on that all week, trying to get her back home here, and there's been several things this week that sort of prompted me wanting to talk about this and doing this video. And I've done other videos on this before, sort of like the, kind of the everyday SHTFs and that kind of thing. And I took statistics when I was in school, and kind of how to figure statistics and whatnot. I kind of found it interesting. It's probably the only academic endeavor that I've ever found interesting like that. But statistically, as preppers, you're going to run into those common everyday problems much more often than you are larger, more world-changing problems, so to speak. Things are going to happen to you more than they're going to happen to the world at large. And it's always been interesting to me how people who are prepared, people who live, a preparedness lifestyle, are less prepared for those everyday type occurrences than they are large ones. I guess that's the best way to put it. And, I'll use an invasion as an example. There's been very few times that North America has been invaded, but medical emergencies happen every day, just like they did to us here. And I don't know if I've ever told you guys this, but my wife has a blood clotting disorder. She's been prone the last 15 years or so to get blood clots. And things were controlled fairly well for a long period of time, but now there's been some hiccups, there's been some problems. And if you know anything about blood clotting disorders, I always use the example of, you can dodge a bullet from outside your body, you can't dodge a bullet from inside your body. So it is one of the things that we try to prepare for, but then there's still things that go above what what we can do at home. There's certain instances where you have to have medical care. This is one of those instances. Another thing that happened this week is I had somebody, they were going up to take care of some of the cleanup with the ice storms that happened in northern Michigan. And their chainsaw was completely not up to the task. So, I helped them get their chainsaw ready, sharpen chains, that kind of stuff. And it's one of those things that I have seen many, many times. People might have a generator. People might have a first aid kit. People might have a chainsaw, to clean up storm damage or to cut firewood. But then when the instance that is much more common than the grander scale of SHTFs, that equipment isn't ready to go. The first aid kit is missing stuff. The chainsaw is not ready to go. The generator won't start because it hasn't been started since the last power outage. Stuff wasn't cared for and maintained. And I know that kind of stuff is mundane. It is the most mundane aspect of preparedness, getting ready for an invasion and going out and buying, a new plate carrier and setting it up and running around and doing that kind of stuff is a heck of a lot more interesting than doing a tune-up on a chainsaw. But statistically, using that chainsaw to clean up storm damage or to cut some firewood because you're having some problems with your central heating system or something, and you're using your wood stove backup. Statistically, that is much more common than, the invasion scenario that I was talking about there. So I would like to see more people in the preparedness community talk about the common things that we should really prepare for. I'm going to use the stock market as another example. The stock market has been in shambles here the last couple of weeks. I have seen multiple stock market corrections in my lifetime. So, that should be something that we keep on our radar. While they don't happen every year, I can remember quite well 87, 2000, 2008, 2020, and now here in 2025 again. So right there, there's almost a good half a dozen pretty major stock market corrections that resulted in recessions. So, while a recession doesn't happen every single year, they do have the tendency to happen multiple times in our lifetimes. And a lot of people aren't really ready for, that economic contraction. Hey, what happens, what happens if I don't have any money to spend, or I really shouldn't spend the money, I should save it because we're going to need it for, something else down the road. Again, it's one of those mundane, nobody wants to sit around and talk about, I'm going to, prepare for a recession, because that's, not as interesting as a zombie apocalypse, but those everyday things. And I'm here to tell you, I've been there. Whether it's putting up your own food, you're canning stuff. You've been, you start canning stuff in, let's say, July, when the stuff starts coming in the garden, and by Labor Day, you're tired of canning because you've canned every weekend and every day off, and you're like, oh man, the last thing I want to do is go out and can some applesauce. But I'm here to tell you, that applesauce might save your bacon if something happens down the road. So again, it's that constant, slow, steady approach. The same thing with groceries. Yeah, we used a bunch of stuff out of our pantry, and I just haven't had time to go up and replace that. The last thing you want to do after you work, a 10-hour day or a 12-hour day, is drag yourself up to the grocery store and check off stuff in your on your list that you need to replenish in your pantry. You just as soon rather go home, take your shoes off, and go to sleep because you're exhausted. And I understand all of that, but I have seen more people get jammed up because that everyday stuff hasn't been tended to compared to the bigger, broader, wider events. And just something that I wanted to talk about here, because here we've had the perfect example for it here this week. Wife got sick, took her to wanted to take her to the doctor refused to see her, said you need to go to the ER. Took her to the ER, and the old timers came through with their wisdom again. The old timers always said the hospitals out in the country, they're not hospitals, they're first aid stations. All they are is to stabilize you, to transport you to a higher form of care, which is in a large, generally unsafe urban area. That's pretty much how it goes. And that's where I'm headed. So here I am, country boy, driving over an hour to get to the medical facility that my wife needs to be in. So now, I'm going from my element out here in the country in the sticks, going right into an urban area. Another thing, most preppers, and I've had preppers flat out tell me that, I wouldn't be caught dead in an urban area. Well, sometimes the situation dictates that you have to go to an urban area because of unforeseen circumstances like this right here. So now, what do I do in that situation? Well, I make sure that I got my EDC on me. I make sure that I got a little bit of cash on me. I make sure that I got my packing back. I got myself a good coat here in case something goes wrong. I got all my stuff charged up. I got a battery brick so I can charge my my equipment up. I made sure when I left my small town, I got my gas tank filled up. And that's another thing, I don't like getting gas at large rest stops on like along interstate highways. I don't like buying gas down in really inner city places, because those are all places where, me being by myself, I would be vulnerable. So I want to not go to those places. And then two, those are the kind of places where skimmers are installed in gas machines and stuff that can, steal your information and, hack into your card or whatever. So I would much rather go to Papa Joe's in my own town and fill up my tank, and then that way I'm squared away for this trip. When I get back into my local town again, I'll fill up again. It might cost me 20 cents more a gallon, but it's a much more safer environment. I don't have to watch over my back in the middle of the night filling up gas because I didn't keep that in mind. That's another reason why I'm constantly telling you guys to make sure that your gas tank is full, because you never know when you're going to end up in a situation like I am. But anyway, just wanted to have this conversation with you guys here while I'm taking my long drive to go get stuff done. It's going to be another full day here, and hopefully in a few days my wife can get things, we can get things squared away and she can come back home again. But got to roll with the punches. That's what prepping's all about. And you got to prepare for those boring, everyday, mundane things that are bound to happen to all of us at one point or another. The big stuff is definitely something we need to keep an eye on too, but the everyday stuff is the one that really, really affects most people. Anyway, it's Modern Refugee. I appreciate all my subscribers out there. Hope you guys get a little information, a little entertainment out of my videos as always. And I'll try to have a little better production values next time for you. You guys have a good one.